why are you coming back into games? Why not doing just another film or anything like that?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is that even though I quit the game business for a while, it wasn't because I didn't like games and I didn't play games. So like even when I was making my movies, I was playing games and keeping up with everything, and even keeping up with my friends in the industry and all the technology. It was just that I sort of lost the passion to make a game, because all the games I've always made have never been about I'm going to sell 1 million copies or I'm going to make a lot of money. It's always been, I saw a game that I wanted to play, but it didn't exist, and so I sort of made. That's why I made it. Is so because I wanted, So Wing Commander was all about. I saw Star Wars when I was 8, and I just loved that fantasy of being a hotshot pilot saving the galaxy, and I wanted to play that fantasy out. Not just watch it in a movie, and that's why I made Wing Commander. So I think for me, what happened is that it was a while, so I got to recharge my batteries. The technology's moved along a lot, so the power of the Monday PC allows me to sort of do things that are at a film quality, which I really always wanted to do, but I couldn't do back then. So that's really exciting, and I'm really excited by the power of the internet, and everyone's got broadband now, so you can connect your community like you never could before. Because in the old days of making games the old-fashioned way, I'd work for 2 or 3 years, put it on a disc, put it on boxes, it would go out, I hope people would like it, and then they'd all play it for a month, and then it would be done, and then I would start it all over again in 2 or 3 years. Now I sort of feel like you're much more connected, and it's more instant, and so I just sort of feel that's all exciting. And then I also feel like there's a transition in the industry right now, where sort of online and digital is sort of making possibilities and opportunities that weren't existing maybe 5 years ago, and it's a lot more similar to the early days when I was making games in the late 80s and early 90s. So I think it's good.
Yeah. When you have half a minute to explain to somebody what Star Citizen is all about, what would you describe them? Like your grandma. Now, I'm doing a new game. I only have half a minute, but I'll tell you anyway. What would you tell her?
Well, I mean, Star Citizen essentially is it's an open world universe that you can be who you want to be and do what you want to do. So you can be a soldier, you can be a merchant, you can be a pirate, you can be a bounty hunter, you can be an explorer, and the idea is pretty much up for you to sort of write your own destiny and your own story in this greater universe.
You said that you have now technical possibilities you hadn't had before. Can you name one very important technical ability that modern day PCs now have that you hadn't? That you miss most?
Well, I think one of the key things is just the ability to render a level of detail. And for me, people say, oh, well, pretty graphics, what's like I'll do a gameplay, but that's the wrong way to look at it. For me, it's all about immersion. So the more detail and the more realism, or the cooler it feels, the more I get immersed in this world, and therefore the gameplay itself is better. I mean, a good example would be like Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3. Basically it's Tomb Raider gameplay, but they do the world is realized so well, and the details so good that gameplay that's been around for a long time just feels much better because it feels more realistic. So for me, the power of a modern day PC, literally the top end gaming PC is 10 times more powerful than a current day console. So you can't do the sort of stuff that I'm doing on a current day console. The big scenes are running 10 million polygons instead of maybe 1 million polygons or 500,000 you do on a console. But what that allows you to do is render this world and with so much detail and lighting and texture that you really sort of get immersed into it. And that's what I want. I just want to sort of feel like I'm in Star Wars or a movie like that. And that's the advantage with games that you don't have in movies is you're participating, you're in that environment.
So one thing from Wing Commander where you say, well, I always wanted to do this in a game, and now I can do it, like walking on the stations or stuff like that. Is there any one issue you can?
I think that's definitely part. I mean, I think when I was showing you the demo, and I think you'll probably have footage that you'll show as part of this interview. But yeah, the ability to have the fidelity of walking around in first person and being on, say this huge carrier that's a kilometer that's fully rendered out in the detail at that first person level, but you can get into a fighter craft or a ship, climb into it and take off and fly outside, and then you're in space in a much bigger scale, but it's still rendered with all that detail. I never could do that before. I mean, that's just that's the fantasy. So
I mean, you showed us the scene where you can walk from the bridge of the spaceship to the hangar. What could happen in the final game? Do you have like shootings on the hangar and
well, I
aliens
think
invading?
in the final game in space, there will be action aboard the bigger ships. So it's in the single player part of the game, which is we're calling Squadron 42. There will definitely be cases where the ship will be attacked and boarded, and you'll have to repel the boarders, or you'll go on a sort of you'll try and storm an enemy ship to capture it, and that will be a combination of. So first off, you'll fly out, clear out the enemy fighters, and then make a way for the Marines to go in, and then you can land your fighter after, get out and join the Marines as they try and fight their way to the bridge or fight their way to the reactor. So I've always wanted to do that, and that's part of what we'll be doing.
Will there be interactive cutscenes like in Wing Commander with taped footage or stuff?
No,
like
there's
that?
not going to be any full motion video like we had in the old Wing Commanders. And I've had that question a few times. But no, I mean the level of detail of fidelity we're doing now. So from my standpoint, it's I'm much more. I want to keep you in that universe, and the model, like the characters are 100,000 faces instead of the 10,000 faces that you normally get on AAA games now. So what that means is that you're almost like at pre-rendered cinematic quality. So we'll be capturing motion capture and facial. So it'll be more like the Avatar style of stuff. So we'll be working with actors and doing all that, and there will certainly be some cinematics and story stuff. But it will be all sort of in the engine and in real time.
Let's talk very short about the, let's say, business model. What does it mean how will it feel for the player? The player buys the game, and what happens then? Where's the crowdfunding part coming in from the player's point of view?
Well, I mean, so the crowdfunding is essentially they're basically backing it early, right? So, but the final model of the game is going to be similar to Guild Wars, where you buy the game and the content up front. You buy your spaceship in our fiction, is that you sort of order your different level of spaceship, your starter spaceship or your mid-level spaceship or your fancy super sports spaceship. And then once you do that, there's no subscription. So it's not free to play, but it's also not sort of MMO subscription either. It's sort of that Guild Wars model. And then there'll be some in-game transactions where you can buy some more in-game credits with money if you want, but everything's purchasable with in-game, so there's no pay to win. There's nothing you only can buy with money. So if you spend the time earning in-game credits, you never have to pay anything. And so there are also there's checks and balances to prevent people from just sort of being able to buy this amazing invincible ship that no one else can beat, because I think, as I was showing you in the demo earlier, there's trade-offs between having bigger, heavier ships to having lighter, more nimble ships, and the physics system works all with this. And so I just think there's a lot of going to be nuance, but essentially, yeah, you buy the game, and then you get to play in this universe how you want. And in terms of sort of the crowdfunding, what we're basically saying is, look, I want to make this on PC. I want to push the PC to the limit like I used to with the old Wing Commanders. I believe in the PC. I think it's really sad that the big publishers, what they give you is a port of a 360 or a PS3 game. So you're getting 7-year-old tech ported across your PC that doesn't really show it off. So I believe in the PC, and I really want to bring back the space game, the sim, to the level that I used to do, and I think everyone really liked. But the big publishers, they don't, they want to just do another Call of Duty or something, or they're not focused on this, or they want to do a mobile game, and it's not this kind of experience. And I think there's a lot of people like myself out there that are PC gamers that have great PC rigs and are kind of frustrated that they're not really getting great content for them. And hopefully they'll say, I like that, I like what I'm seeing, and I want to see this happen. I want to participate in this community, so I'm going to pre-order my spaceship for this universe. And the advantage that you'll get in that situation is that it'll cost you less than it'll cost at the end of the day, but you'll participate as part of the community from the very beginning. And we've built a whole, even before I make the announcement, that I'm making on October 10th, we've had a website running for a month where the very early people have signed up, and we're giving daily updates on multiple fronts and filling them in on the fiction of the universe and asking them polls and really making it an active community. And that's going to extend soon, from the moment we start, on October 10th and onwards. That's, it's not going to be like other things you've seen on crowdfunding where, people have raised the money and then you don't hear anything, and where it is, it's like, this is, all the way through, we're making the website almost part of the game and part of the fiction, that you'll go to see what's happening in the galaxy, even though the game isn't done yet. And then you'll have the advantage of you'll be playing builds of the game long before it's ever going to come properly live. So we're going to have a build about a year from now that will be just a multiplayer build where you'll be able to dogfight, not in the persistent universe, and the only people who will get to play that are the people that have sort of pre-bought their spaceships. And the same for the sort of alpha and beta of the persistent universe. So there'll be a lot of advantages to getting in early.
One really short question. Is there any chance you might be doing, let's say, a port to the next gen consoles like PS4, 3,
Well,
Xbox 720?
there's never say never.
Okay.
So the next generation consoles definitely will be able to support. I mean, because basically they're a high end. They're essentially being a high end PC. But I'm not really concerned about them at the moment because for me, I'm focusing on PC because it's the most interesting in terms of the technology. It's an open platform. It's constantly evolving, and it's the platform that I made my name on. So I feel like there's not a lot. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of designers that were sort of my peer group when I was making games that are now off doing social games or doing mobile games, and I sort of feel like there aren't that many champions of PC gaming anymore, and I want to come back and be that.
Okay. One question, probably last. Do you have learned one lesson from the film industry which you can now apply to this game? Where you say, well, this is really something which is useful for game developers?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that I do apply. One is, the production methodology. There's some stuff in the film business that's really useful in terms of pre-production and how you approach stuff. And I've been approaching it on this way. I like what I've been setting up and how I've been building this is very much like that. I've spent about this past year with my own money and some angel money, and I've been doing a long pre-production. And I haven't had a big team. It's been a very small team, but that's better because the problem with a big publisher when you're working is you have these big teams, but everyone's on salary. So when you start your project, you don't need 100 people or whatever, but you've got 100 people. That's why these games cost so much, is because they're all sitting around waiting for the time they need to get busy. And so I've been sort of applying sort of a bit more of the film production methodology, where you're sort of scaling and ramping and really just picking the experts as you need them. But then the other thing I think is the attention to detail that you have in film, because again, it's I keep talking about immersion, but it's about immersion. It's like when you see a film, a lot of times you'll see a film even set in today's world, you won't realize that isn't a real location. It's actually a set. But the art department has built and constructed it down to the last final detail and little marking on the wall, just to immerse you, just so it feels real. And I think the thing that I think film's really good at is that attention to detail if it's done well. And I think in today's world with the technology I have on computers, you should be able to do a lot more of the attention to detail to just make that the fantasy world that you're the futuristic world, whatever that you're building, just feel more tactile and real. And then that just puts you in the fantasy in the world, and it's just a much better game experience.